2 seasons in, and every single episode has just been me. One mic, one woman, one truth at a time. And I've loved that. I've needed that. But today, it's different. For the very first time, I have a guest. And I didn't want just anyone to walk into this space. I wanted someone who would understand without explanation what this show is actually about. Not the tagline, not the elevator pitch, the real thing. The part where your whole life changes and you still have to wake up the next morning and figure out who you are now. My guest today is Donielle Young, also known as the Grief Disruptor. She lost her husband to stage 4 cancer, rebuilt her entire life, and then turned that rebuilding into a movement. MHDS Media, the G3 Method, and a platform for women who refuse to disappear after loss. But here's what you should know before we start. I didn't bring Donielle on because she has it all figured out. I brought her on because she knows the cost of what it is to keep on going. And right now, that is exactly the kind of company I need. I am Erika Hernandez, and this is Purpose, Not Pity. Donielle, thank you so much and welcome to Purpose Not Pity. I am so glad that you're here. I have been pretty excited to have this conversation with you. I want to get started and I want to be fully transparent as to where I am right now. Okay? The episode before this one, I recorded it while I was sitting with the thought of having to let go of an apartment that for the very first time in my adult life, I chose for myself, right? Oh. Not for my children's safety, not for the school district, not because it was affordable. It was just for me. Along with that, my son Jovan's birthday is May 12th, and he would have been 21 years old. So I was sitting with grief, stress, and survival all crashed into one moment, one recording. And then I look at who's coming next on this show. And this season of the podcast is about what happens after the impact, the recalibration, and the finding your stillness when life won't stop moving. And your whole life's work lives in that same territory. So I don't want this to be where I'm interviewing you. I really want to talk to you. No script, no performance, just two women who know what it means to rebuild out of rubble. So let's get into it. If you want to share a little bit about yourself.
I do want to share a little bit about myself, but I'm going to stop you for a second because you just dumped a whole load on us. And I have to say something. So I want to say that I understand the travel that it takes for you to make the decision that you did, for you to do the work to pack up all the things, and for you to actually move and sit in this space quite literally. I think one of the words, and I don't want to speak for you, but I know that there must have been a level of excitement as well, because what you said to me was you chose something for you, not for anyone else. And while you're holding all of the other things and knowing that you're making this decision based on life circumstance, but you also made a decision for yourself. So I just wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you. I see you, I fully see you, and I understand that heavy load that it takes to make those things happen. And look at you, you're still on this screen with me here today. Like that's huge. I mean, the power of what we can do while we're carrying so much is in the first, 3 minutes of this conversation.
And it's funny you said that, because before we started recording, we said that waking up every day with intention, right, is a minute by minute, right, lifestyle that unfortunately, due to our unfortunate circumstances, we have no other choice but to have to learn.
That's true. It's true.
right?
It's
So
very true.
go ahead, share a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I find it really kind of hilarious to share a little bit about myself because I've literally had like
Well, if you
20.
want, you can share a
No, 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 no,
lot.
no. I mean, no, I meant that and saying like every time we get that question, because you do the interviews and they're like, okay, tell me a little bit about yourself. It's like, oh my God, which part of myself do I want to tell you? Because even in the last 4 years, I've been like 30 different people. You know what I mean? Besides kind of where I came from, where I grew up, and who I was. So that's what I meant by that. It's just like this heavy question of like, okay, I'm not one person. I'm so many different dimensions of a person. But yeah, so I am a mom. I am also a widow. I lost my husband to stage 4 colon cancer. It's almost 4 years ago. He was 47 years old. He got diagnosed during 2020, and he battled for 2 years where I was his primary caregiver. We have a son who's now 17 years old, who I call my man child because he's 6'4" and 190 pounds. So he's a man child in my house that I always say, you know, he left me here with his child. But yeah, I used to work in corporate finance for over a decade, and I actually worked in corporate for over 20 years. And you know, God called me and said that when I went online to try to find someone that was thriving through this mess and not just sitting in it, I couldn't really find the energy that I was looking for. And I want to stop saying that I couldn't find anyone, because I did find some out there, right? But the energy that I was looking for that was going to propel me forward from this devastating loss that I have had, I couldn't find her. So I said I created her. And I ultimately created a framework and did all the things I'm sure we'll talk about. But that's really, in a nutshell, who I am here today.
I remember when I lost my son, I went to TikTok and started documenting my grief, my healing journey. And at that time, part of it was because I was looking for people who can relate to me. Because what usually happens when you lose a loved one, for instance, yourself, your husband, for myself, my son, okay, we usually tend to be the only ones in our group that are going through it or have been through it.
Yeah.
We're usually the only coworker who's lost a child or a husband. We're usually the only one in our friend group who has lost a child or a husband. So it's like, even though you may have a support system that you can talk to, they really don't understand.
They don't understand.
So for me, I went onto TikTok to kind of like document my journey and kind of, in a sense, find my people. And what I found was a community of people that not only can relate to me and could understand, but I also was a fresh of breath air, because I was breaking that stereotype of what it is to lose someone and to grieve. Because when we think grieving, we think sitting in a dark room, crying our eyes out, can't get out of bed. And for me, yes, I had that option, but I knew that my son was always the life of the party. And his only wish for me in his entire, 18 years of life that he got to live was, Mom, be happy. Mom, live. Mom, don't work so hard. Mom, go on a girls' trip. Do you, right? So that has been my motivation and my reason for being intentional, whether I want to or not, to realize that even though it's not the life that we imagined, there is still life after loss.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, the same exact thing happened to me, and I commend you, because I think oftentimes what happens is that people go through this grief and they go through these things in life and they feel like no one else is going through it, And so I'm sure that you were able to help a lot of people by telling your story, by being vocal. And by the way, what everyone needs to know is, we say it, but it's not easy. It's not easy to flip that camera. I mean, I watch all the videos of trying to convince people to just talk about makeup and skincare. I want you guys to think about, like, you can't even get on the screen and talk about your dog or your outfit, let alone talk about the most vulnerable part of you. And so I think it takes special souls to be able to do that. And then the same thing happened to me when I went on. For me, it was a lot of sad, doom and despair. And I'm learning now that it's because that's what sells. It's just really holding on to the sadness. And I told myself that's not where I wanted my brand to live. There are parts of it that I do show, but I want to talk about how parenting, in-laws, family, friendships, dating, traveling, living, working, like how am I functioning? It's quite obvious that we have our sad moments and we, but there wasn't a lot of like talking about that portion of it. So, and same with you. And Brene Brown had said at one time, what's a bittersweet moment? And I would say bitter that my husband had cancer and sweet that my husband had cancer. And I say that because we had that time, and oftentimes people, whether it's a tragic accident or a quick health scare where they're gone, pretty quickly. For me, he was diagnosed at stage 4. So he was diagnosed with a terminal illness from the beginning. And so we were buying time all along the way, and I had time to have anticipatory grief, and I had time to kind of ask him those questions and talk to him. And I know that he's told me multiple times, he's like, you better live this life. And, similar to your son, Erika, like, if that doesn't motivate us, I don't know what will. It's even in their honor that we make that decision.
And I want to go back because I know that we started with this conversation where I asked you, tell me a little bit about yourself. And what I really want to get to is everyone talks about the grief, right? And that's what we've been talking about. You go on TikTok, everybody shares the sad stuff, the strong emotional stuff. I've done it. My last episode was like that. I started in tears, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, damn, I lost my son, I lost my job, now I'm about to lose my apartment. Like, what the hell? Because it's not the grief, it's the frustration, right? Because sometimes frustration comes out in tears. It comes in that strong emotion. So we talk about the grief, the loss itself, but there's that second loss that comes after. It's the loss of the person who you were before it happened. When did you realize the woman you were before your husband passed wasn't coming back? And what did you do with that?
This is where I live in the grief space. I live is that grief is not just sadness, it is an identity shift. And as I told you in the beginning of this, I was about 20 or 30 different people because I had no idea who I was going to be. I was even salacious about it and said I didn't know if I was going to be in these streets or if I was going to be a nun. I mean, because I'm a young, healthy woman. Like, come on, you know what I mean? So, like, just it was so many things that happened pretty instantly. The first identity shift, especially, and it's funny because I was just watching on Instagram this doctor. I think his name is Dr. Nash. Nash. He's incredible. If you are a caregiver, if you have a caregiving loss where you were a caregiver, he talked about what I experienced immediately because my husband was in hospice. And it was waiting for his last breath, or even prior to that, it was waiting for the doctor's call, or waiting for what surgery, or waiting for the tumor results, or waiting to schedule the appointment and take him here and take him there. When he took his last breath, that next morning, it was like, I'm no longer a wife or a caregiver. I was doing so much, and it was just like, as far as from a responsibility standpoint, it was so quiet. No doctors were calling me. There was nothing to check. There was nothing like, I don't know. I can't even really describe it. It was just really quiet. And I had lost that part of me. And I'll never have that back, And there was a sense of pride in those moments, right, of being a caregiver. There was a sense of pride in being able to offer that to my husband. And I no longer have it. And so wrestling with that identity shift is a big deal. With that empty feeling. And then I was going for a walk one day. I wish I could tell you when it happened. I feel like it was 2 years after. And oh, Erika. And I was walking the dog and I said, oh my God, I'm no longer his wife. Like my being, right? Now, obviously I was, but like my being, I was no longer the same person that I was as his wife. Like if I met him on the street now, I'm just so different, And so when you talk about identity shift, I think we need to talk more about what happens, and I say very gently, the opportunity there is to find out who is this new version of me, because there is no going back. And I'll go one step further, and I thought about this yesterday. I would never be the me that I am without losing my husband. I would have never become the me that I am without losing my husband. And so there's a part of me that's like, okay, there's an opportunity in me finding out and discovering who I am. And there's a whole process in that. But yeah.
I feel that. I gave you the little snappy fingers because I feel that. When I see myself and I see who Erika was almost 3 years ago, it's a completely different person. I was somebody who was always known as the hard to approach, the intimidator, the very strong character. Yes. I was very hard and set in my ways. Like, it's unfortunate what we need to go through to potentially be the people we were meant to be, is the way I try and look at it.
It's funny. I think I went the opposite. When you said that, I was like, oh, really? I was like, I feel like I went the opposite. Like, I became more, like, protective and closed up.
No, I became a lot softer. Because I just lost my son. And I quickly learned that we have zero guarantees. Like, the only thing we have guaranteed right now is this very moment. And I said this in my last episode. 10 minutes from now is not a guarantee. 3 days from now is not a guarantee. It's what I have today. Yeah. And I either have a choice to be with the mask on, with the armor on, and try and continue to fight my way, or I could just be.
It's a beautiful freedom, if you're able to get there, right? So we have some people in our circles that are not there yet, and I said this last week. I'm not for everyone, right? There are some people that are in the grief part of their life where they haven't quite been able to break through. And by the way, that's biological. Like, it's neurological is what I meant to say. It's neurological that you're not able to break through, It takes an incredible amount of will and stamina, if you will, to break through that grief, that just being in the mud, that just ache. I know you've had them multiple times, but that ache that you're sitting in. And so I just want to I forgot what I was going to say now, but I wanted to be gentle and in that I know that there's some people that can't get there, right? That can't get to that space. But with that being said, I love the challenge that I gave myself. I love that I gave myself the challenge to find out who I really am. And the audacity is what I got in my widowhood. I got the audacity to show up every single day, however that is. If I'm half of a person, if I'm a whole of a person, if I'm angry, if I'm sad, whatever that looks like, I gave myself the audacity, like you said, to be in that moment of who I am. And that was really important to me.
And that kind of reminds me, like, everybody's loss and everybody's grief is dealt differently. I feel like I was more tenacious, more brave, more out there before my son's passing.
Really?
And I remember, like, yes. And now it's like I've gotten better. But now I'm the Erika who questions everything 15,000 times before making a decision versus I used to be Erika who would be okay jumping off a plane with no parachute, and I would be like
Yeah,
as I'm going down, I'm like, okay, we'll see how we land when we get there, like, you know. And now it's like
fascinating.
and now it's like, okay, if I jump,
What's gonna
is the does
happen?
the I need a parachute? Does the parachute work? Like now that's who I am now. I agree with you when you said everybody's journey is different. For me, my first year was just full of anger. I was angry at my son
Or
for leaving the house when I thought he was sleeping. I was mad at God. I was mad at everything and
yeah,
everyone.
yeah.
I was just angry. It was the first anniversary of my son's passing. I woke up that day, I was like ready for war. I chose violence that day. And I
Wow.
remember waking up and just yelling at God, screaming at my son, saying things that as a mother I thought I would never say to him. But you know what?
You had to get that
After it
out.
was over, that's when my healing journey began.
Oh, yes. And you know what you just talked about, if I may do a little plug.
No, go
What you
ahead.
just talked about in my G3 framework is the grit. So it's like from the grief to the grit. It's, it's the G3, so it's from grief through grit to the glow up. But in that grit space is where you really, like, you have to climb through the mud. You have to get in the deep dark. You have to be there. And the reason that I'm saying that is because there's someone out there that is numbing themselves. Now, it's okay to numb yourself, by the way. It's okay to go to that party because the survival that it takes, they say it's the most devastating, traumatic experience that a human being can go through is the loss of a loved one. The most traumatic thing that your body can go through. So sometimes you just need to numb, right? But when you're ready to go through the grit, what you just described is going through the grit, is sitting there and being angry and being in the mud and feeling the feels and letting it pass through you. Because once you let it pass through you, you've done what? You've taken the power away. You've taken the power away from it because it's like, oh, I can handle that. I've done that. I'm going to let it pass through my body so then I can move to the next step. Some of us are not there yet, and that's okay. And some of us can't be there all the time, like myself. There were times I couldn't sit in that deep dark because it would be scary. Let's put it that way. It would be very scary. And so there are times where I had to numb myself. Numbing myself for me was more being around people, calling friends, eating crap, like, just doing like, I will spare you guys the details, but I can tell you whatever your numbing vice is, it's okay, as they say, everything in moderation. But going through that deep dark is very, very important, and going through the mud is very important if your goal is to get through the grit and get to the glow up and get to that healing phase. I will tell you, and I will stand in this, I think you can't get there without going through that. I don't think that you can.
I agree because I tried the yoga, I tried the meditation, I tried like, oh, today we're going to paint my house. And in reality, it's distraction from what
Yeah,
you really need to do.
becoming a workaholic. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For high functioning, showing up
Yeah.
regardless. I used to go to my doctor and they were like, oh, you're a high functional griever. You're doing
Yeah.
great. You're strong. But eventually that gets exhausting.
Yes, it
It gets
does. And it wears
exhausting.
you down.
And
It wears you down.
And I get people who get into my DMs and they're like, I lost my so and so 8 years ago. How are you so far along? And my
Mm,
response always is the same. The journey's not the same for everyone.
that's true.
And until you face it
Mm.
head on, you're not going to move on.
And here's another thing. People don't realize that when you experience grief, it's really an exposure to anything that you had before. So when you're looking at someone else, like an Erika, and you're saying, Erika, how did you get so much further along? You have to consider, what were we working with prior to? What am I working with prior to? And that's also in my framework and talking about knowing your capacity and knowing where you are. What is your baseline? If your baseline is depression, if your baseline is anger management, if your baseline is insecurity before any of that devastating loss, it doesn't just disappear and grief takes over. Grief
It amplifies.
exposes all of that. And I think that that's why all of us have a different grief journey. Because if it was just this grief and then that's it, it's similar to any kind of illness, right? So how come this person that had stage 4 cancer was able to have their chemo and their treatments and make it through, right? What was their body makeup? How did they, what was the vessel that they were working with before they had that devastating disease? I mean, everything plays a part, because whatever you were before your grief, it exposed. And so you have to sit with that though. And that's a hard thing, because I couldn't sit with it without the grief, let alone sitting with it with the grief, you know? You got to deal with you. And there's nobody else that can deal with you but you. But you.
Yep.
And that's a hard task. The other thing I will say, I don't think I've ever really said this out loud. I wrote a book called From Grief Through the Grit to the Glow Up. One of the things that I talked about was stop lying to yourself. And I'm going to say this, especially for my widows. To me, it's been a little bit helpful. You know, when someone passes away, we tend to shrine them. We tend to like have this, oh my God, it was the best husband. He was the perfect husband in the world. And it's like, were they? It's just something that you have to sit with and say to yourself, you know, what was my life truly like? And be honest. And the reason why I'm getting there, because some of our grievers are where we are, right? That is how I'm able to kind of see the opportunity in what I can do. I'm not a wife. I don't have those wifely duties. I don't have those things that I need to make sure that he's okay and all of those things. So now I can focus more on me. And now I can actually focus on maybe some things that I had aspirations to do that I couldn't because I was a wife and a mom. When I say stop lying to you, really get into your gut and find out who you are. We don't want to sit in that silence and find out who we are, because it's not pretty. Erika, what you and I have gone through in sitting in that silence and getting with our own identity and our own stuff while we're going through the grief and the devastating, painstakingly ache, that is next level. And I salute you for going through that. It is not easy, and only very few, I believe, can really do that.
Same. Now we're going to go into your G3 method. You've mentioned it.
I'm sorry.
No. You have mentioned it a bit, and it's real. Yeah. And it's powerful. But I want to ask you, because I got through the grit, and just when I thought I was hitting my glow up, I went backwards because I lost my job. I got to that phase where I'm like, okay, I'm in the becoming, right? I was looking forward. I was in that phase where like, who is Erika? I remember my last episode for my season 1 was about the woman I'm becoming and I'm excited to meet. Only for two weeks later, I lost my job. And it's like, you go, damn, like just when I thought, the ground shakes again.
Yep.
Have you had that moment where you're like, oh, I'm in my glow up, and then you're just like, okay, we're going backwards here now?
It's just like grief. It's not linear. Every day, every other day, every other month, every 6 months. Like, you know, a year after my husband passed away, I'm like moving along, I'm deciding life and figuring things out, and I had an abnormal mammogram and I had to have a breast biopsy. And my husband just died of cancer. And my sister was diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer. So absolutely. And that's why I knew that I had to write something and put the framework in, because it doesn't just, you don't just do it and go through the grief, then go through the grit, and then get to the glow up. It's like, okay, I made it, we're good. It doesn't happen that way. You get into the glow up, you fall back, oh, now I gotta get back and roll my sleeves up again. Oh my gosh, here we go. That is life. That is life every day, all day long. And by the way, I go back into the grief. And by the way, I go back into the deep dark. It just happened. Was that yesterday or the day before yesterday? It just happened. You know why it happened? Because I had to sit on a phone call with my son's baseball college recruiters. And I said, I'm not supposed to be here. His dad is supposed to be taking care of this. I'm not supposed to be here. And I got angry, and I got mad, and I got irritated, and I got annoyed, and I did not want to be there. Like, literally, it's an exciting moment. I did not want to be on that call. That's not me in the glow up phase. That's me in the mud. That's me in the, this is ridiculous. Why am I here? Right? But having that framework helps me, I'm quicker to climb out of that sometimes, not all the time. But I have, because when you have something that you're a muscle, that you're working constantly, then you're able to move quicker through that process and get back to your standing. But absolutely, I don't, and I say this in every interview, I don't look like this every day. It's like, there are times.
Oh, girl, me neither.
Girl, because there are times, whoo, I scare myself. My girlfriend will FaceTime me and she'd be like, are you okay? You know? And that's just how it sits with you. And if we're being honest with your listeners, that's something that they need to know. Like, we don't sit there in any portion. And I never like the stages, by the way. Sorry. I call them waves. Because a stage implies to me that you're on one stage and off another. And I have joy and grief at the same time. I am happy that I'm at my son's baseball game and excited that I'm able to be there. And I'm sad and guilty at the same time. I'm excited that I can go on a trip and be in a bathing suit on the beach, enjoying the water, and have guilt and shame at the same time. So I call it waves, because waves can crash into each other and all the feelings can crash into each other at one time. But to answer your question directly, no, my dear. I don't just get to the glow up and I stay there. But you know what? I will tell you something. When you experience the glow up, there's a portion of it that stays with you. There's a piece of it that stays with you. And so even when I'm in the grief, because I finally got to the glow up phase, I can kind of bring that with me. And that's what helps me to be like, okay, I know what it feels like because I've been there. Okay, I can get back. It's going to take some time, and I got to climb through the rubble a little bit, but I have something to look forward to.
That's like, experience first class at an airplane for the very first time, and then you have to go to commercial seating. When you're back there, you're like, yeah, I'm not sitting here anymore. Like, I'll do whatever I got to do to get to that first class seat. It's kind of the same. So I just wanted to be clear. Your G3 method is not like, oh, she's going to help me get through the grief. She's going to help me get through the grit, and I'm going to stay in the glow up forever.
And that's it.
Because
I'm here. I've arrived. Yeah.
Because it's not. Because unfortunately, life still happens. And I say this consistently on this show, like, life doesn't care what you've been through, because God knows I've been through a lot in my 46 years of life, and not just my son, prior to that.
And I think that prepared me for what, because I said I've had grief way before my husband passed away, way before I've had parent neglect, I've had abandonment, I've had trauma, I've had all kinds of things happen to me. And I believe that's what sometimes I think God gave me, this insurmountable assignment, because there's something greater that I can't even dream of. There must be. For me to go through something so devastating, even with everything that I've already gone through in my life, there must be something so amazing. So God, what is my assignment? What is it that you have me to do? And how can I stay in your will? Right? And I think there's another book coming, because I don't talk a lot about rest and being peaceful and slowing down and being still. All of those things require security and trust and a lot of work within yourself to be able to do that. But those things tell me that I am arriving, and I am trusting God that there must be some big assignment for me waiting on the other side. And that's what keeps me afloat as well, is to find out what that is.
I know exactly what it is that you're talking about, because I spent a lot of time after his passing saying, this is why I went through all of that.
Yeah. And it's
Because
scary
if
to
I
say.
would,
It's scary to say. It's scary to
yes,
say. It's just like I would not have said that 5 years ago. Like, you know what I mean? Oh, I mean, my husband needs to die for me. You know what I mean? But it's a scary thought, right?
yeah, because then I think to myself, if I wouldn't have gone through all of that, then maybe I would have been the griever that was still sitting in a dark room, crying her eyes out, wanting to give up, wanting to leave with her child, right? Not wanting to live anymore. And as sucky as it is, and it sounds like, maybe it's preparation, right? I feel like our lives are pretty much destined. We can
Yeah.
make choices on the directions that we want to go to, but at the end, we're going to lead exactly to where we need to be.
Yeah.
You spoke a little bit about being happy and joy, and I want to talk about something people don't say out loud enough: the joy, the good days, the
Yeah.
moments when you forget, even if it's just for a second. Do you ever feel guilty for being okay, for thriving? And how do you make peace with the fact that your light didn't go out just because his did?
Here's something that no one's talking about. I could probably deal with my joy a lot better if the people around me didn't judge me for it. That's the first level. And I think that's where the shame and the guilt comes in. Because if you didn't have that audience around you saying, oh, I can't believe she's going outside? She's going to go on a vacation? What? Or judging you for not doing the other things, like going to their father's funeral, or going to that wedding, or going to that graduation, or in your case, maybe that birthday party. Because you know what your capacity is. That's another thing I talk about. What is my capacity? I'm sorry, I can't show up at the hospital. It's a trigger for me, right? And so when you talk about joy and having to be in that, that's how I protect it. And my joy would be a lot easier to receive and accept if I wasn't being judged so much for trying to live this damn life.
So your guilt comes from others,
Others,
not
yeah.
necessarily from you.
It comes from inside as well. It comes from inside as well. But I'm saying it would be much easier to deal with the guilt within if I didn't have the people around me that were like, oof, don't you think it's too soon for you to be doing X, Y, or Z, right? And as far as myself, I know my husband. And I don't believe in the whole, I did this for my for my husband, I did this in honor of him. I don't believe that, because I'm a whole person without my husband. That's one of the reasons why, if you look at any of my social media and things like that, it's not really presented as him and his dying and his sickness. There will be elements of that because I want to share that story, but it's about me. It's about what I have endured, what I've had to go through as a wife, as a caregiving wife, and as a widow. And I think that's enough in of itself, right? And now as a solo mom. And the only reason why I say that is because there's a big difference when having the opportunity, because we've had this conversation, was like, well, we've never heard from the dad and whatever. Listen, the opportunity is there. At any point in time, there could be a reconnection. There could never be a reconnection for my son. He is gone forever. I wish I could have an attitude with my husband. I wish that I can have a co-parenting argument with my husband because he's with some woman in Bahamas. Whatever. I've heard every story under the roof. You can't compare. I'm sorry. You can try your best, but you can't. It's something very different with not having that partner, someone, accountability. And even if you don't have a relationship, in the back of your mind, you're still thinking, darn, what would he say? Or how would he feel about my child doing X, Y, or Z? So yeah, I mean, when it comes to joy, I've made it my life's mission to find it and chase it every opportunity I can. By the way, that's been ever since. I've been that way since I left at the age of 15 or 16. My home was, this ain't it. I don't want to be here. there's something better, and I'm going to chase it until I find it. So.
Love that. Really do love that. So I want to follow with, this show isn't just for people who've lost someone to death.
Yes.
There are a lot of different types of losses in life
Yes.
that transform our lives to something we never imagined our life would be. People listening have lost marriages, careers, sobriety, family, because they decide to go no contact, their sense of self. What do you say to the woman whose loss didn't come from the funeral, but whose grief nobody is bringing a casserole for?
Oh, dang, I just got goosebumps.
And I ask this because when we talk about grief, right, we often associate it just with the loss of someone. But there's a lot of forms of grief.
No, yeah, and actually, yeah, no, I speak to a lot to the divorcees. We have a little bit of a battle because they like to say that they feel like a widow or divorce is like a death, and I have to correct them. But there's a lot of similarities in what happens after the divorce and trying to, as you said in the beginning, recalibrate or reclaim your identity and who you are going to become now that you're no longer someone's wife, right? And so there is a lot of similarities in kind of just the becoming of who I am. What I would say to that woman is the number one thing that brought me through is being kind to yourself.
Grace.
So people talk about grace and people talk about give yourself grace and all that. I heard this quote a long time ago and it said, "You have never been here before." I have never been right now in this moment with a 17-year-old who is grieving, who we have to prepare for college. I've never been here before. I've never been on this podcast with you, Erika. I've never met you before. I've never had this experience right here before. And so oftentimes as women, because we are expected to overachieve in any nurturing capacity, that we are expected to know exactly what it takes to be the person that we need to be. And so I want to drill home as hard as possible. You sit there and you be kind to yourself, because we put so much pressure on this quote unquote opportunity to find joy, to find who we're going to become, to be this woman. And to be honest with you, the only way that you can get there is by traveling through the grit, which is not fun. And it's not a short road, and so with that travel, you have to be kind to yourself throughout that process. You have to talk good to yourself. You have to give yourself good things. You have to put good people around you. You have to have a good nurturing environment around you because you deserve it. And so that's the thing that I would tell that woman, is to please be kind to yourself in every single stage that you're in. And I have to remind myself that every single day. I have to remind myself that when I'm parenting my son, because guess what? I've never been a solo parent. I've never been a solo parent to a teenage boy athlete who's a man-child. Never. And so I beat myself up sometimes. Did I say this right? Did I do that right? Am I over-parenting? Am I this? Am I that? And I have to bring myself down and say, Donielle, it's okay. Be kind to yourself. You've never been here before.
Kindness. I love that. I truly love that. I want to end with the woman who's still in it. The ones who maybe right now are listening or viewing this episode in their car, who may be sitting in the dark, who hasn't rebuilt anything yet. What do you say to her? Not as the grief disruptor, not as the woman who wrote the G3 method, but just as you, the woman.
Yeah. You're sitting in it. You need to know, and I know people say this all the time, but even as you look at my face, I've been there. I sat there. I still go there. And I think that's the most important thing. I think sometimes when you're in the dark, there's nothing that I can say that's going to prevent that dark. That dark has to come. Because it shows you that whatever it is, whatever the loss that you're experiencing, that you allowed yourself to live. And I'm going to cut it real quick and say, like, you know, when you're dating and you have breakups and stuff, the only reason why you have breakups is because you went out and tried to date. You know what I mean? Like, you went to try to accomplish something. So that's why that happened. And the reason why you're in the dark is because you tried to have that marriage, you tried to have that career, you tried to do X, Y, Z, or whatever the situation may be. And I want you to know, and I'm holding your hand to tell you, that every single person that you look at has been there. I have cried so hard that my face was swollen, that my eyes were swollen shut. And I'll tell you another secret. After crying for 2 to 3 hours, I got up, I took a shower, and I got on a Zoom call for work. And I thought I was a crazy person. And I was like, I must have bipolar or something, because what the hell? But that's what we do as women. And sometimes we're sitting in there, and you're sitting in that car, and you're crying, and you're feeling like crap, and then you're walking into Target, and you're smiling at the cashier as you check out, and you say thank you, and you get your bags, and you're like, I was just on the brink of, like, God knows what, but I was able to smile at this person. I want you to hold on to that, because that's what makes you human. That's what makes it real. And I don't want to give you something to tell you that you won't be in the deep dark. I want to give you something to let you know I'm holding your hand. We have all been there. And now when you come out of the deep dark, let's do the work so that we can minimize it, and then we can push you through to the other side. That's what I want to say. All my friends were married friends, right? It took me a while. Like you said, all of your friends or people were like moms probably, you know, with all those things going on. And so I had to create a new tribe and new people. And, you know, you were connected with people that have lost their children. I was connected with people that lost their spouses. And I had to create a tribe. So, and I just got goosebumps saying this. So don't always feel like you should be sitting in it alone.
Or the people that you currently have.
Or the people that you currently have, especially. Like, and that's the part of my book, All Your People. Because sometimes people are there for a particular season. And you can't have guilt. Girl, we can talk for 2-3 hours, okay? Because that's a whole nother segment about family, friendships, relationships. Like, you have to move these people out. And you have to do it quickly because you're so fragile and so sensitive. I don't have time for the shit. I don't. Like, I had to kind of sit down and be like, okay, but I felt guilty. And let me say this to the person. I felt guilty because the person that was there during your divorce, right, while you were in the mud, going through all the stuff and whatever, now they're not showing up like they used to. Now they moved on to their life and they're doing some funny business and some other stuff or whatever, and you feel guilty because they were there while you were crying your eyes out and this and that, but they can't be that trusted friend for you right now. Let them go. It's okay. Let them go.
Oh my God. And I love that you say that, because I remember like that day that I had my eruption of emotions. And I felt that peace, and I was like, okay, now I'm ready to do the work. And I doubled my therapy. I decided to go to a psychiatrist. I decided to get on, I decided to do everything that I needed to do. I was doing therapy even before my son passed.
Me too.
But I just decided to go aggressive mode, right?
Yes,
and one day I'm just like looking at my list of people, and I'm like, because once you start healing, it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different thing.
Why the 10th hour we going there now?
It's a whole different thing, right? And I'm like, yeah, you were definitely here every day after my son passed. You brought me food. You made me laugh. You took me out. But now that I'm healing, you got to go. Yeah, no, yeah, nope. You got to go. Yes. And I started cutting people left and right, even though they were there for me when it was dark. But like, now I'm trying to figure out who the hell I'm becoming.
Yes.
You don't fit anymore in that equation.
Anymore. And it's okay. And it's okay. So this is what I will leave with on that topic. We are so fragile when you're going to that grief and that devastating loss. Think of it. You are so fragile that you have to protect your energy. So I'm going to give you a practical step to your listeners. I want you, the next 5 friends or family, even family, in-laws, even your children, I want you to see how you feel in your body. Pay attention to how you feel in your body when you're around this person. Do you feel drained? Do you feel unsupported? Do you feel unheard? Do you feel heard? Do you feel energized? What do you feel in your body? Because we have to audit the people around us and we have to protect our energy because we are so fragile. How I looked at it all these years is I'm in a deficit. I can't afford for someone to keep taking. I'm already in a deficit. And I think this is why I created that book, because you need to see it that way. You know, you have a cut on your arm. You can't keep having someone hit you right there. You know, and if they're not helping you and it's not healing while you're around that person, you got to get rid of them. Like Erika said, they got to go. And maybe they come back in a different phase. Maybe. But it's okay. I went through a complete solitude at one moment. Maybe not.
Maybe. let's not give the people that I cut off false hope if they're watching.
I love that.
All right, Donielle, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the time, your wisdom, your words. I truly appreciate this. And yes, I definitely have to bring you back, because clearly now we have a whole other topic that we need to get into.
Thing to talk about. Listen, Erika, thank you so much. Thank you for having this platform. And most of all, thank you for telling your truth. I think the main thing is authenticity right now. And we need for our women to stand up, and we need to speak our truth. And guess what? Everyone's not going to agree with it. Everyone's not going to understand it. And that's okay. There's a lot of things going around with our women. Mel Robbins and Emma Grede and Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. Like, all of these women are getting attacked because they said this and they said, if you don't agree, we don't have to bash or bully our women, right?
Amen.
But
Yep.
I want for everyone to be authentic in their being. As long as I'm being authentic and I'm trying my very best to give you my experience, you should respect that. And I respect you. And I thank you for this platform. And I thank you so much for giving of yourself, because I understand how much that takes to give of yourself publicly. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much. It's been great. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. If this conversation met you where you're at, I invite you to sit with it. And then share it with someone navigating their own impact. You can learn more about the journey at byerikahernandez.com. And remember, no one is coming to hand us the stillness we are waiting for. So we find our own way through together. Until next time, forward intentionally.